We've got our special guest today, 230-pound mobile dad, we'll call him, Zercher Life, Brendan Ferris. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on, and let's talk. Introduce yourself for the people that are watching.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Um, I've been a trainer for probably past going on 5 years now. Always moving, always doing sports, and I would describe myself as aggressively average. Um, I just, have different standards for myself. Um, but I love training, I love moving, and I love doing weird shit and making it work while still having two kids, which is chaos.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like there's very few people that I know, and I think on the internet as well that you see they're that strong and that mobile. Like I've seen you do a straddle split. Um,
Almost,
well, yeah, I
almost.
mean, but very close, like very close. And you're deadlifting from a platform, close stance 405 for reps.
Yeah, I get 455 for reps still, but I was
Well,
stronger before the marathon.
yeah, and you ran a marathon, and you ran a marathon. So that's a lot of things going on. That's a lot of things going on.
I feel like if
Yeah, but
if
like I
someone
said,
just decided to run a marathon, they're like that would be really tough on them. They would be in pain for a very long time.
I wasn't in pain really. At like joints were not bad. It felt like I did like a really hard leg day, like with a whole lot more calves than I usually ever train.
But that
That
speaks
was
to the
what
level of fitness that you're at. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think you got to prepare right. I mean, in theory, but that's like, a lot of my training that I do with a lot of the men that I coach is always like it's you just need to be ready for whatever it is that you have to do, right? There's some PTs that I love in Coral Gables who also have some stuff going on, but they're very much anti-fragile and they believe that it's not a overuse injury, it's more of an underprepared injury. And
Are these the
like
old bull
thinking,
people?
yeah, this is old bull, which is phenomenal. But Katie Dabrowski has a started as a seminar and now it's like a full weekend search. Is paired up with some other first principles of movement and is doing stuff with them. But I mean, I feel like that's really all I did for the marathon was just make sure that I was ready for it. And then I was sore for a couple of days and was good to go a week later. Still weaker, but physically, like no joint pain or anything like that.
So one thing that I wanna touch on is different modalities and how everything makes it so that you can do something like that and not be in pain. Because, for example, if I ran a marathon right now, I know my knees would be shot, my back would be shot, and that's definitely because of some prior issues that I had that like I didn't really focus on too much and let them get bad. But how would you say balancing all the different modalities and all the different things you do allows you to get to that point?
I mean, in terms of balance, I think that's where like programming, but allowing yourself to understand that there are good days and bad days. And I do a lot personally I'd say over the past year, really, not before that. Over the past year, I started almost strictly using RPE. Um, so like rate of perceived exertion, right? So anytime I would be coming in on a day where like, my son who's almost 9 months old and my daughter's 2 years older than him. So like if he had a rough night and then my daughter came in and the two of them just wanted to hang out in our bed at like 2:30 in the morning until 3 or 4 or whenever. And then they both also wanted to get up at 5. And I feel like shit, like it's understanding that like maybe I'm not gonna go hit like my heavy set of deadlifts or something. And I might instead just pick up some kettlebells and still feel the same kind of level of RPE, keeping that same pattern. Um, but I think in terms of balance is like something that you talk about a lot actually is like the movement snacks, right? You got 20 minutes to work out, like do a 20-minute workout. Push yourself pretty hard. And if it's 20 minutes, you're going to be able to recover from that. It's very unlikely you're going to completely crush yourself in only 20 minutes.
Right.
Um, so I did a lot of short workouts. I did a lot of the things that I like, and a lot of things that I can do like on my own time, right? Like my heavy deadlifts were always at the gym. I don't have a barbell in my building gym. I don't have another gym membership. Um, I have kettlebells at home, right? So if I want like a lighter, more like kind of whatever kind of workout, just moving my body and like not really moving the needle, but getting some movement in, then I have the kettlebells at home. Um, and as far as the mobility, like I feel like that's kind of just like a requirement. If you have kids, like you got to be down on the ground, man. So if I'm sitting playing with my daughter, I'll just like sit in a straddle or in like a 90-90 or something like that. And the more time you spend there, like the better it's going to be. The more you have access to that. Um, so like, movement snacks, mobility snacks, just that kind of stuff that you can sneak in all throughout the day.
That's very true. That's very true. I mean, like the toughest thing for most people is getting on the ground and getting up off of it. And like just something simple like that, like just spending some time on the ground is actually it's a little bit more beneficial than we think,
And
or
that's
than
why we went on to we were talking before the podcast went live that how we sold all of our furniture and our shoes and whatnot. And so we just live on the floor barefoot, and it's really good for us.
yeah.
I mean, we want to move into a house after this apartment, and we are joking that because we're in an apartment, like if we move into a house, we don't have enough furniture. And my wife was like, "How long do you think it'll take before we get enough furniture to fill a house?" I'm like, I guess we'll find out. So we have no real plans on how to get the extra furniture, but we know we'll have more space.
But
Yeah.
you
Maybe
could
we
just
never
live in
get
nature.
furniture.
You could live in nature and
Yeah, but I don't like the living in nature scene in Miami. It hits different.
uh
Living in nature in Miami is would be
being
interesting.
sarcastic, by the way. So,
You live on right in front of Capital One Cafe. They've got chairs there.
I can't help but think though that like there's got to be a way to hang one of those like parachute hammocks that I have too many of underneath a bridge and still be pretty comfortable. Like, every time I go under 95, I'm like, you could.
You could. I mean,
Like there's
shit.
a way.
You got enough fences. You got enough fences with
Got enough fences,
yeah,
a couple
so
C clamps and a carabiner, man.
there's one thing that both Brett and I are very very passionate about, and it's just going into every single facet of training. Brett here is a freak. He's an absolute freak. This guy's doing some heavy weight. He's doing some heavy weight. But he recently got into he recently well why don't you talk about it, Brett? Like speak a little bit on your lifting.
on my lifting, I don't
Yeah.
know, man. I just it's always changing as I learn. I feel like the more you learn, that you don't know anything. And you think you have this bright idea, and then that you learn that your idea is not so bright. But I don't know, man. I do kettlebell, sandbag, landmine, mace club for a pretty long time because I felt like it translated to sports better than like barbell, machine, dumbbell. Uh, but now I still think that for absolute strength, but I found the value in more athletic moves in the weight room for like training your nervous system faster and moving with quality movement, which is why we're studying Goda and like primal movement stuff. Um, so yeah, combining the you just have to take, in my opinion, take everything you've learned and formulate your own system, especially for me, like when I'm dealing with athletes. And same thing for general population as well. You know what I mean? If you're if you're a coach, I feel like the more you learn, the better. And then just applying all those things. So I have a lot of things under my toolbox. Anything that there is that I've never tried, I will try. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I liked what you said right there about like learn a lot and then kind of come up with your own system of what absolutely works or like what works for you or in whoever it is that you train, right? Um, I love kettlebells. That is like what I have probably the most fun with. But like the craziest cert that I ever did was the steel mace flow with Leo Savage. Um, and like
That dude
truly
used to be
like
like hot. He's still
yo,
gotta be pretty popping, but that dude used to be like the
he's just
man.
back on it now. I think he's just started back on it.
Nice.
Um, but we sat down in a circle on the first day and he's like, I just want you guys to know this is going to be like a certification like you've never ever done before and like you'll never do again. And everyone was like, okay, cool, cool, sure, whatever. And then like 2 hours later, all of us were like standing there with our eyes closed doing fucking switch curls, crying. Like I shit you not, I'm in a room full of strangers, like literally fucking weeping, tears
Dude,
running down my face.
so and why is that? Because I've never met him, but he seems like quite the character.
Well, he took us through this like very, very cool like meditation and like movement based meditation and like feel your connection to this and then got this epic song playing that like I still have saved. I can send it to you. And like I still like a lot of times if I flow with the mace, that's what I have on, and it's just you're in a completely another different world. But he takes us through this meditation, walks us through like the first time that I ever like actually was like, oh right. He's like, and that color that you see, what is it? Everyone's like, oh, this is your color. He's like, that's your chakra that you're most in touch with. I was like, oh shit. Okay, cool. I'm like,
damn.
I thought this was like steel mace, like swinging maces and doing cool shit. And it was. And after that, though, we did like 1,000 lunges. I swear to God, it was at least 1,000 lunges. And I fell down when I got out of the car at home because my legs locked up. And that was the first day. And then we went back for another 8 hours the next day. So he was right. It was like a cert that I'd never done before. And there's a lot of stuff from that that like I still use without it being like with the mace, because you're not going to get like a gen pop guy who just wants to get absolutely jacked to be like, okay, we're going to learn some steel mace flow. This is the one-footed archer out to the side. Like, maybe not.
Uh,
But well, you use pieces from everything, and like that was a cool one for, you know, unloaded leg training, for people that don't want to use weights but still want to absolutely die.
So would you compare the would you compare the mace flow to the Viper stuff? Because I feel like it translates without the swinging. Like it's like a lot of like that single loaded side stuff like that.
Kind of. The mace flow was a little like the way Leo teaches it, it's a little bit more like into yourself and into the movement. Like there is a lot of, when you go through like the master flow, which is the one that he teaches that you test out on, it's a there is a lot of like perfection in the execution that is required. But Viper and Institute of Motion have a lot more that I would say is directly aimed towards athletic performance, right? Because all of those guys and like Michelle Delcourt, like that was all geared towards first hockey players, right? And they wanted them to have that power through that rotation to actually be able to feel everything. So there's a lot of like the breath work if you're doing like an uppercut to the side, right? That's that, so you're feeling your ribs stack, your core engage. Um, Viper and the IOM stuff is a lot more geared towards F, or at least their like exploration and discovery into that 4 quadrant model was they found that through athletics. And then
Okay.
found that like it also works very well for Gen Pop.
I think also if you do want to swing a mace, you don't have to go to mace like service. You know what I mean?
No,
Get
no,
spiritual into it.
no. Like it is
You
at
could
the
get
end
a
of the
big
day,
mace and start
really
cranking it
fun.
out.
Well, and that was like the cool thing that
I didn't
like
expect you to
we
say that he
absolutely
went into
did.
that whole like route in his cert because I never did his cert, but I could see there was some different type of flavor coming through his Instagram.
I mean, we also definitely like did like an open flow at the end where he had on like I don't know, some kind of like metal or something. And he was just like, have fun, don't stop. I want you to feel it. And everyone was like, yeah, oh shit. Like we felt it. It was different than like the beginning of it. It was one of the weirdest but wildest certs that I've ever done.
But what would you say is like besides that one, like the being the wildest, what was like the favorite one of yours that you just like you feel like you took the most out of?
I think I think definitely strong first. Strong first was very, very helpful across the board. Um, and have either of you guys seen Pavel Tsatsouline and Andrew Huberman yet? They did a
I've watched
podcast
some
together.
videos, but I haven't watched the full thing.
So it's really cool. It gives a lot of insight into like the strong first methodology and also kind of Pavel's very, very Soviet style of training. Um, so like aggressively Soviet science backed, um, but also backed in just like applicable strength. Um, so strong first tends to be very, very structured in the way they teach movement, right? It's hard style kettlebell training. So it is very, very Russian style. Your swing, if you're not locked out and standing up perfectly at the top on your technique test out, you actually won't pass if your swing doesn't look like that perfect snap at the top. Um, and so I think from a better way to teach fundamentals of movement to someone who is untrained, it gives you a lot of different, really cool ways to do that and a lot more helpful tools to like get someone who's not locking out their body and can't figure out how to actually fully extend their knee to like do things like that and to be more powerful. And so I saw the most crossover from just doing what 6 movements for 3 days straight because it's squat, swing, press, clean, snatch, and get up. Yeah, you do 6 movements for 3 days, and I left and like was teaching every other movement that I did in my sessions with my clients significantly better. Um, and 90% of them are not using kettlebells like that. So that was very cool.
Okay.
You know, one thing I've been big on since the outside the box conference and we started getting into to Goda and whatnot and just have more just new things. I can't stop doing like forward exercises or and like somewhat avoiding exercises where it's crown back hips through. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm or yeah, if that makes sense, crown back hips forward.
So is that are you
Yeah,
talking about like are you talking about exercises that are like without
A
a
forward
hinge?
intent.
Yeah,
forward intent. That's what it is. Yep.
Like a
yeah, like a hinge.
like if you consider like a kettlebell swing versus like you could say the landmine, or even you could even use kettlebells though. But you get what I'm saying because they talk about that, like where in sports or in like the natural world do we go head back, hips through? It's always like hips back, head forward. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? And getting strong in those.
So it's like
That's something I've been like diving into a lot recently and kind of like avoiding normal swings or like normal squats, deadlifts, even though they're all very important. Have you went down that route at all? Either of you?
I have for sure. I'm at the moment I'm combining a lot. I'm combining a lot because at the same time I find a lot of merit in linear strength, um, as opposed to all forward intent, because then you end up overdoing the hinge pattern. And I found that when I overdo that specific pattern, I feel it in my lower back.
Mm.
And like I find there's a lot of merit of combining it and finding the right amount, because you can overdo things. You can overdo things. And while it is important, I'm finding ways to incorporate the Goda, but not have it be the whole thing.
And also too, I feel like this is what we were talking about before we went live with the podcast is like if you go full in on that one system, but you're not strong, you see what I mean? Because you can't load certain exercises like in terms of just pure pounds, like how much you're doing on an exercise, such as like, I don't know, let's just call a landmine versus like a back squat, significantly less weight. So it's important to keep those regular lifts as well for the absolute strength.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where like programming plays a big part, right? And that like mixed modality in programming or mixed intention, right? Like, um, you know, Andrew and I've talked extensively about like conjugate programming. I think like conjugate's a great way to just to mix everything together as long as you understand it to make it work, right? Like you can have your two max effort days where you hit something max effort, linear, upper, lower, right? Absolutely crush it. And then a lot of that repeat effort after that can be more of that athletic stuff. It can be more, or on your dynamic days, right? Dynamic lower is dynamic. That's where it's open for interpretation for you as a coach, right? Like that could be something like, if you're thinking kettlebells and not landmines, that like snatch step up, right? Where the intention is forward, right? Drop it back down into a swing or something like that. Like I've done those. I like those a lot. Um, or like walking snatches too are a fun one. A little different, usually a little bit lower. I would have people do those first before I would do like a snatch step up most of the time. See if they can actually take a step with a snatch and not fall on their face. Um, Probably try it for myself too. Uh,
So, so that's like that's FKT right there. So have you done that cert?
I've not done that cert, but I've been doing those like probably since when I saw them on Instagram somewhere before I even knew about that cert. Um, and I've seen a lot of like track and field athletes, right? We'll do like a clean to a step up, but with a barbell.
Hmm.
So exceptionally linear, but usually loaded a bit heavier, right? Where you're actually getting to that front rack with a step up.
I feel like I wouldn't like those with a barbell.
That's pretty wild. Like you got to be.
You got to be really good. You got to be really good to make sure you're not like crashing your wrist and you're not like falling backwards, because it's a lot of weight coming here.
I mean, I think you're right. You're just trying to get to the bar, not let the bar get to you. That's the cue that I would hope worked.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so here's one thing, because you've talked a lot about kettlebells, but you're very proficient in with the barbell. Where was that, like where did that honing in come into play? Because you've talked more about kettlebells, but you're really good with the barbell.
It's just because I think that's just like I think like my only lifting stuff is literally just because I saw that shit online. I was like, it's so cool, and I couldn't do it. And there is truly almost no other reason than that. Like it just is
It's
sweet,
it's
you
good to be
know.
able to coach that too, because a lot of people do it, but if you understand proper technique, it makes a big
Yeah,
difference.
I have one of my guys who's working on his cleans, and we just started introducing some snatch work. And he's like, I just don't think I'm going to make it to the next Olympics. And I was like, well, you haven't even been doing it 12 months. So maybe we just buy tickets to the next Olympics and call it
Is that
there.
what his goal? He's trying to be in the Olympics, or is
Hell
it?
no. He just
Uh,
knows. He's just he's like, I just don't understand. Like, how do these guys do like, 150 kilos on a snatch? And
It's
I'm
some of
like,
the
well,
most
you do this
I always
for
say it's some of the most impressive one of the most impressive like realms of work of exercise or strength like weight training. I think that Olympic lifting is some of the most impressive lifting I've ever seen.
Well, the
the
fact
better
that
you
Sports, you
that's
could
get, the
say
more you suck.
sports, one of the most impressive sports, whatever you want to say.
yeah,
The
I
better
mean,
you
like the
get,
fact that
man, the
you're
more
actually
you
flexing.
suck.
What
To
is
be
it?
able to just to be able to get under, I mean, what's like the world record for someone that's like 200 pounds? It's probably like four or 500
Oh,
pound snatch.
yeah, yeah. They're ripping like I think the biggest snatch was Lasha right now. I think he still has the world record. There's 499 pounds, whatever that is in kilos, 200 and something offensive. He's
Can you
taking a
imagine?
It says
Yeah.
according to the current records, the men's 100 kg world record snatch is 225 kilograms.
who has that right now?
Lasha,
It is Lasha, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because the 100 plus category. So he's a big boy.
Yeah, I mean that's
He
only 220 though.
maybe it wasn't
100
in
kilos, 100 kilo weight, 100 kilos, 220. That's like a normal sized man. Well,
No, no,
maybe
but
Lasha's
that
not man, bro.
that weight
Lasha's
class is it's 100
100 kilo
plus.
plus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. True.
Yeah.
So I wonder what he weighs then. What is he? He's probably a big boy.
no,
He's big, dude.
he's a big
Oh
boy.
yeah. Oh yeah. I see right now. Yeah, I've seen this dude.
Yeah, Lasha is not a small dude.
100 kilo plus. I feel like that's so what's the
That's
weight
a
in Olympic weightlifting? What are the what's under 100 kilo? Like weight class wise, like right under that. What's the next one? I'm gonna look it up if you don't know.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you off the top of my head. I've like not even thought about competing. I just like to get better and move bigger weights. My low key goal is to one day be as strong as an Olympic woman. Um, so I think that's very reasonable goals. And the one of the Americans at the Arnold Strongman just now just hit a new American world record and hit a 362 clean and jerk. So I have some serious work to do.
a woman did that.
Yeah, yeah.
That is ins
362, man.
you know what is the craziest part to me about Olympic weightlifting? The mobility that they have with these like extremely heavy weights. Because
Some of
getting
them
into a
don't.
full squat.
Hey, you ready for this statistic right here? As of recent updates, the world record clean and jerk in the 80 kilogram weight class, clean and jerk 80 kilogram weight class, 224 kilograms.
The average
Is that what it said? Average? No, that's a world record.
of the
Mhm.
world,
That's insane.
325. What is that? 700 pounds?
So that's a 175-pound man clean and jerking, um,
480.
clean
325.
and jerking
Uh,
493, 494.
yeah.
You said
Call it
285.
call it
385.
500.
Ha.
Could you imagine 500 pounds over your head?
Dude, it's a solid deadlift.
That's what I'm saying. People strive to do a 500-pound deadlift their whole life. They're like, that's like someone's like dream goal when you get in fitness. Like, I want to deadlift 500 pounds. And then there's this guy just jerking it, no problem.
Too strong. Too strong, man. Then
It's-
like
People dedicate their whole life to that, though. That's like one of the most intense sports you could ever get into.
yeah, I mean, and if you're in some kind of, post-Soviet state, then like something in that Eastern Bloc, like Carlos Nassar, man, he's a Bulgarian guy. He's 20, but he looks like 40. But he hit like 100 kilo clean and jerk when he was like 14 or something.
Shoot.
Truly offensive as well. But he's ridiculously strong. He's like I said, like when you look him up, Brett, you're gonna see this guy does not look like the 20 years old he is. But that's the kind of thing that like hard weight training for, in literally the mountains will do for you.
So are these guys like, because this is always something that I see that I think of when I watch it. Do these guys last long? Is it like because I assume that they're doing some things right in order to not be dead, but like most athletes are kind of like after their playing days, they're destroyed.
Well, with weightlifting, it really depends where you're from, right? Like that was like, and like a lot of the Russian style of training was very much like back in the day when it was like the Russians and the Bulgarians and the US, right? And everyone was on a buttload of steroids and no one admitted it, but weightlifting was crazy. The Russians were very kind of anti maxing out, right? That's where like 70% all the time, slowly building that up, and you max out at Worlds and the Olympics. And those are your two times that you max out a year. And the Bulgarians were quite the opposite, right? They were in the interest of SPP um, or like specific physical preparation. They would their weightlifting days was like 6 days a week. You would build to a max front squat, build to a max clean and jerk, and build to a max snatch. And you just do that 6 days a week. And like it's effective. Like you will get stronger and you will get better, but you will also probably completely ruin yourself. And so a lot of their athletes tend not to be older, even still now. And the Russians during like that Cold War era, they kept things light. And so you would see like a lot more weightlifters in their like 30s and stuff. And now at the past worlds and at the Olympics, there's a couple guys that were like 30 plus still at the Olympics competing. Um, and in like a sport like that, that's pretty cool.
What
So
do y'all
when you
feel about high schools and colleges and even pro level using those lifts for their athletes as a main form of training?
I mean, I like I said, like I love those lifts. I also don't think they're like incredibly hard to coach a reasonably good looking clean, right? But I don't think it's the end all be all. Like, and I like loved it. I love Foley lifting, but I don't think it's like the only way to do it, right? Like, it's probably easier to teach some high schoolers how to do, a double kettlebell clean or a dumbbell clean, right? When really you're training a movement pattern, you're not necessarily training that. The benefit of the barbell though is that you can just like load it significantly heavier and then get more of a stimulus. Like there's there's a lot more I think required of like cleaning two 50-kilo kettlebells or something than there is cleaning 100 kilos on a barbell. Right? Like I think that requires more. So like by the time you get to college, probably they should work into these lifts. But again, I don't think it's the end all be all.
the one thing I will say about Olympic lifting is that while I don't really train it much, it's extremely effective. Like back when I was in school, back when I was in school and training swimming, we did a lot of Olympic lifting. And while I don't like nowadays, if I knowing what I know now, I probably would have done a little bit more on my own. I would have done a little bit more on my own in order to not have the pain that I had during that time in terms of my lower back, my lack of mobility. I could do the splits, but I couldn't get into a body weight squat. So I do think that there's little movement snacks that don't get included as much when it comes to like athletic training nowadays, or not nowadays, but in most programming. But it's just again, it's like it's also the responsibility of the athlete to do a lot of stuff on their own. So like the Olympic lifting is great if you have other things paired with it, is what I'm trying to say.
That's a great point too, because I feel like a lot of people do avoid those like those movement snacks, but I feel like when you were saying that, you were talking about very specific things to do for like healthy movement. And like doing those healthy movement exercises is not very common in athletic performance.
And it's not even like the go to stuff. It's more so like it's just a little bit of everything. Like for example, like if animal flow, that like that's I feel like that's pretty applicable to most sports where if you learn to connect your hands with your feet and you just get that little bit of like the like at that point an animal flow would be like if the athlete had a hard week of training, the client had a hard week of training and they still need to get a stimulus. They still want to build those neural circuits and they still want to have a pretty good workout. I feel like that's where something like animal flow comes into play. If they're having some back pain, it's like, okay, let's put you through like a glute intensive workout, something to where you could feel the hip, feel the glute connect. And it's like it's like a very case by case stuff, but I feel like all of those like weird movements, that weird fitness really comes into play to like keep you being able to do the Olympic lifts.
So when you left on the gym on Thursday and your neighbor that is also my client came in, he just got back from his first cruise that he went on and been absolutely feeling like shit. His whole routine that he has was like really good routine, like we really built an awesome routine for him has been totally off. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, I know you left, but like we then like talked about how to get back on the routine and then actually did some animal flow for like 30 minutes. I was like,
Nice.
yeah, no, so exactly. Yeah. And his legs were shaking. And the only weighted things we did were some calf raises to stretch out his calves. So yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, like think about it. I mean, if you do, I like to like. There's a lot of supersets. I feel like my my favorite way to work out is supersets, and the next exercise is a decompression of the first one. So like anytime I do any barbell work, I'll combine it with some animal flow. And not the other day when I was doing the Zerchers, but that's just because we were talking between sets. So definitely it's something I like to combine with the Olympic lifting because you're getting that forward fold, you're getting a lot of decompression and length in the spine while moving the hips around, which moving the hips around for me is big. Like it always just yeah.
Always
You
does
do
it
it.
for you, moving the hips around, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know me, I'm trying to have loose hips. But Brett,
It's
do you mess around with animal flow? I haven't really seen I haven't really seen you do much of it.
I'll use it sometimes. Sometimes as like a warm up, or I'll give it to a lot of general population. Like if I'm working with those people, I don't give it much to like fighters unless it's like a warm up. But even now, I haven't been using it really too much. I don't really do it myself much either, to be honest. But I know about the edible flow, and I'll use it sometimes.
that was another tough cert. If you ever do that one, be ready.
And
You'll
is
be
it really?
shaking. Yeah. Oh yeah. That one was another one of like the drilling the minutia of where your body is. So you're just, on all fours, just everything's shaking. I was like, oh, this is cool. They're like, cool. Are you feeling your breath? I'm like, please.
I
Can't
feel
What
feel
like
is
there's a
anything
lot
over
of
the
things
shakes.
too, like that are similar, but then are classified as like animal flow, or like certain stretches that get classified as like GOTA, or certain modalities that get classified as landmine university, or strong first, or all these different ones. You know what I mean? There's so many
Yeah, I mean,
exercises you could just create, but then it's like someone coined it.
yeah, I mean that's like I think Drew and I have talked about this too. Like, coiling is cool. Don't get me wrong, right? Short side, long side, very cool. Being able to like access, this is all the way down, so you have more of that kind of slingshot leverage on the other side. But Pakistani stone lifters were doing that shit hundreds of years ago. Um, And like now we have like really cool names for it. But like that's what it is. If you're picking up massive stones and like toiling underneath it, holding a stone like this, like cool, short side, long side, nice.
So cool. Those videos are so cool. They got the big stone like this. You ever see those, Andrew?
Yeah, I've seen the ones of like the Irishmen. The Irishmen, they just like go up and they pick it up and they're completely on their side, like in the deep squat, and then they're just like getting it up.
Who did you say, Brandon? I've seen like I feel like I've seen like I don't even know what ethnicity it would be, but like Asian people maybe or like Native American people like that are doing it. You know what I'm talking about with like the
I
big
want I think they're Pakistani. I think that's where it came
Pakistani.
from.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
like
That's what you said. See,
yeah,
I think that's right. Yeah,
let's see.
I think that's right. Because it'll always be but I've seen the Scottish people like you're talking about do it too. Or it'll just be like
Yeah.
regular stones. They'll just
Yeah,
pick up like
I mean
regular
stone lifting
stones.
was yeah, everyone, all across the world has been lifting stones because that's like the greatest feat of like, are you stronger than me? I don't know. Can you pick that up? I can.
That's why I like sandbags so much as an absolute strength uh modality.
Yeah.
That's one thing
Yeah,
I
no,
wish
it's
our
like a
What were you gonna say? You're gonna start doing
sandbag.
some sandbags?
no, no, I'm saying I wish our gym had that.
Uh,
Like
Hmm.
Equinox has a very limited amount of functional movement stuff. I
well,
wouldn't say, actually not really. Not
they
really. We have maces.
they could be an eyesore for an equinox, though. You know.
You know someone's gonna get tired and leave it on the other side of the gym.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
Yeah. People find a way to leave everything everywhere at Equinox. I mean, that's the one thing about Brett's gym. Brett has a private gym. So that's pretty cool. Like you get to he has like the 164 kilo kettlebell. He has
Yeah.
yeah, he
I'm
has a
still mad
full
about that. I'm still mad about your video, bro.
Oh, you saw it?
So mad.
Dude, I broke
watched it
everybody.
like 2, 3 times because I thought I missed it. I missed him cleaning it.
Yeah, I
Oh
had to click
man.
it, open it up as a reel to see how far along I was at. I'm like, dude, all right, like let's see it. Like I've watched your other shit. I'm like, all right, let's fucking go. Then I'm like, dude,
That's what I was saying. I feel like it only worked because of the stuff I've been doing on there before.
we were all on board,
It's
man.
like almost believable, but at the same time not.
Bro,
I don't think
I
any
genuinely
having
thought you did.
bro, having that thing in my gym, I don't think there's anybody. I mean, there's probably some select few freaks out there in the world that could clean it, but dude, no one that we're going back and forth with on Instagram is about to clean that thing.
No, that's a to any position. I mean, what's like the biggest kettlebell goblet squat you've seen? Like that's like your first thing. If you can goblet squat that, then like maybe you could think about it.
I mean, World
Well,
Breaker
if you
Stoop
could, cleaning it would be easier than goblet squatting it because you have to clean it to
No, for
goblet
sure.
squat. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
Shoot,
if you can't
I've
even
seen
hold it here,
I've seen close to 300-pound goblet squats.
from who?
Close to 300. Like
So I've seen
I think Tom hit like a 250.
that
uh,
tracks.
yeah, yeah. So that's
I hit the 100-kilo goblet squat.
did you?
Yeah,
Nice.
220.
I think
That's
that's
some
a reasonable one. There's definitely a kick in the gut, but
The
like,
form was horrendous. You know what's crazy, bro, is like I look back on all my old videos since I started studying this like I guess you could call it biomechanics, but like going deeper into that. But bro, the form on that was horrendous. But it got down there. It went below parallel, you know.
So
Counts.
Brandon, did you go through a period where you were really focused on your feet, focused in on your positioning?
That period is right now.
Well, for both of us, but what about you, Brandon?
Mm,
Oh,
I like, I'm like, I'm not sure. I know that there's always been like something I did where someone started talking about it more, right? I did the Kettlebell Kings. They're two certs before they changed their names, right? But they're like kettlebell fundamentals and then introduction to flow, and those talked about that. The steel mace was a lot of like the grounded position, but you're looking more at that, what some people say, like, why are your toes turned in? It's like, really, we're looking at the fifth metatarsal being completely parallel here, but um, nothing like too aggressively specific on that. Um, again, like, I'm like we were talking about before we were recording, but like, I'm not so much concerned with gait in most people, but more so about like, if there's some kind of pain, what is weak? So like a lot of people that I have do some kind of what, like, you know, gait and biomechanics people would say is like functional foot stuff, but really I'm looking at like an angled calf raise this way so they can actually get some muscle and some understanding of like how to use their feet and how to push through their toes without being like, I need you to stand on both feet while tilted forward in a hinge and doing a lovely reach. Um, like, same thing, but tends to be like lower barrier of entry. Um, but
That's
no
more
real
so.
specific foot thing.
What do you mean?
No real specific like time where I was like focusing on foot placement really.
I mean, and that's one thing I've noticed. Like I've watched a lot of your stuff, and I see you work out at the gym, and you already have that. So I'd say like you already have those toes pointed in. Like you're not overly going wide on a squat. I mean, I would like we both go a little bit back and forth on like how wide the feet should be on like kettlebell stuff, because you always tell me to widen my feet, and I just I don't know. It's uncomfortable for me to have my feet that wide. And I think a big thing is like one, I do pay attention to that because of like the standing pattern. I try to have my feet a little bit closer than my shoulder width apart. And I think of rotating the femur and rotating the knees open as I go. And I understand that that's a very hard thing to think about, especially when teaching it to people. Uh-oh.
what happened?
My I just got to put in my screen time. There we go. There you go. Yeah, because my computer and my phone turns off at 8, so I just had to put in the screen time. So that type
Uh,
of stuff, like I understand that it's very hard to teach someone. Like even when I do teach people, like I don't like I told Brett this that the only reason I started giving him like the foot position stuff and started telling him like to focus on that is because he's someone who's already like very into the movement and is already going to work out regardless. So just focusing on something else rather than just the lifting heavy, because he's already going to be doing it every day. I'm already going to be lifting every day, and we didn't have that proper foot position. So it's just like something like it's something that like if you work out enough and you care about the stuff, then you can focus on it. Like you said, like you're not going to give someone who's new. You can't give someone who's new like all this like things to think about because then they're going to feel stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, you could tell them, very easily, oh, turn your toes in a little bit. Oh, okay. Blow your knees out. All right. Yep. Send your hips back. And then now they have the structure of their foot. They're maintaining the integrity instead of the foot just going like this when the foot is designed to hold that arch. It's
Yeah.
like we don't have to, because you could ruin someone's movement. You know what I mean? You could
yeah,
take them from, like, there's two spectrums. Like, you could be out of shape and be in pain, or you could be an elite athlete and be in pain. And the common factor is your movement. So if you are like, oh, okay, well, what I do is I get you super strong. And it's like they come in pain and then you send them to do squats and just all the basic stuff with bad patterning. and they're just gonna hurt themselves more.
You had me thinking about honestly like my favorite cue for almost everyone that I've had do any kind of squat, right? I'm big on like external cues that are things that people like won't forget. I just ask them like we're in Miami. I'm like, have you been to the beach? They're like, yes. I'm like, cool. When you're squatting, dig your toes into the sand. And they're like, oh, right, 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 perfect. And all of a sudden they're good with whatever their feet are at. And half the time, right, you see people like just like dancing. They put their feet down. They're like moving their toes around and stuff. Like, you think I should be barefoot? I'm like, I think whatever you do, you need to dig your toes into the sand. And then it gets everything working underneath there, almost regardless of where their feet are. Um, and that's like been a helpful one for me because yeah, like if all you're doing is caving in and you completely overpronate and then your knees go in, like that's where you tend to get like some knee pain on the outside. Like, and if all you did was like stick your big toe in the sand, maybe you don't get the pain on the outside.
For sure, for sure, and that's something that Brett's been focusing on recently. Like I was talking a lot about how the people in the kettlebell community, especially, are notorious for letting their ankles collapse on just about every movement. And the big thing is like a lot of them are super flexible, but they don't have the joint strength. That's one thing that I think is absolutely impressive is just how thick your ankles and your knees are. Like genuinely like extremely thick and there's no movement there. Like you're obviously very flexible, but there's no like whenever you're doing any of these lifts, any of these movements, there's no like you get what I mean? There's no like shakiness. It's just like
Yeah.
okay, so maybe you haven't focused on foot position, but like have you done some joint work? Have you done some of that like specific training to get that part strong?
Who, like either of us?
No, you specifically, Brandon.
I mean, I ran track and so I did a lot of jumping and sprinting. I think like that like contributes a lot. Um, and not in the way of like I didn't do any weight training really until I started doing decathlon in college. Um, but like absolutely none of it focused on anything ankle. So I think like a lot of that like the foundational strength I had there came from just like time spent running primarily on my forefoot because I was running fast. Um, and then a lot of jumping. So like obviously scale that if I was starting again now, but nothing specific.
Hmm. So it's definitely it's a case by case thing. It's
Well, shoot, I mean, running and jumping is very specific when you think
Yeah,
about how that's gonna strengthen like, your tendons and I mean, people who run and jump have like some very thick. You look at their Achilles versus someone who does not run and jump and just does like basic
yeah,
gym exercises, and it's like a noticeable difference.
yeah. I mean, I think that jumping is really important. I have a lot of guys do. I have one guy actually that I told him, he's like, I don't want to run. And I was like, you know what? That's fine, but you need to be able to. He was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So we do a lot of like plyometrics that are like very low intensity plyometrics just to like get his ankles to be good enough so that if he did need to run, because I don't know, he saw eggs on the shelf at Whole Foods and had to get there quickly,
Let's
then
know
he
what I
would be
found
able
eggs
to.
this I found eggs today. I found eggs today, and I was the happiest man in the world. Like you have no clue. Like Brett, I know it's not a problem for you up there, but
No,
I was talking to you about this. I was talking to you about this that I go scouring all over the freaking city for eggs nowadays.
that's insane. That's insane, bro. Yeah, I just walked straight to the store. There has been some like there has been some there has been some shortages, I guess, here, but not really. It'll be like a day. Like there'd be like one day where you go in, it's like, oh, what the heck? Like the eggs that I like aren't there. Let me get a different brand. But it's never like just
No,
completely
Miami
out of eggs.
said eggs are good for you, and I swear to God, the next day there was no more eggs in any store.
Costco was out today, man.
Fucking A.
Costco was out when we went.
That's you're down bad when Costco doesn't have eggs.
Definitely.
They didn't even have the blue eggs.
No, no, nothing. 2 weeks
Jesus.
ago, though, they had like 4 pallets. So,
I was about
maybe
to
I just
say
went on the wrong
something.
day.
Oh, you know what I was about to say is that's one thing I do like about the I guess like natural movement type people is they always like those courses and like realms of education is uh they all preach like our I guess natural movement is what I was gonna say. So like running, swinging, throwing, striking, all the things we had to do when you had to hunt your food and live that life. So I think it is important. Like you do have to be able to run, and I love that about those types of I don't want to say certifications, but those type of people that preach that.
Yeah. I mean, I
Because you think
also would
about
say
most
too
people,
that
like
like,
you would just like you think about most people when they go to the gym, they'll go to like a regular big box gym, like let's just call it Crunch or LA Fitness, and they hit the machines, hit the dumbbells, hit the whatever, but they never like sprint, swing, throw. Like how many people do you see at a regular gym like launching med balls at the wall or like doing any kind of swings of like call it a club mace, whatever? Not many.
Even a kettlebell.
no, definitely not.
Even a kettlebell, yeah, or like doing martial arts, like which is gaining more. Like jujitsu seems to be gaining a lot of hype, but but yeah, man, that's like so important. I feel like that's the way, you know, that's the way for fitness. Unless you're really passionate
Yeah. And I
about
think
bodybuilding or
those
something.
are, yeah. And I think those are more so like it's more of like, this is what your body can do. So my thought behind is like, well, if that's what your body is capable of doing, then like, why not do it? Right. Like my programming now is 3 of my days of the week are literally upper body, a ton of like bodybuilding hypertrophy because I want to be bigger after the marathon made me smaller. Um, but I also usually warm up with like some kind of a kettlebell flow or something like that, or some
Hmm.
mace work on the pull on my heavy push days where I'm going to absolutely slam the bench. Just hit a ton of mills with the bell or the mace, and like, all right, cool. Now my shoulders are warm. Now I'm going to go back to just straight up working out.
Yeah,
Um,
it's terrible that
so it's
people
like,
will be like, I can't go like play tennis or I can't go for a run or I can't go do this or else. You know what I mean? Or else my knees, like, mom, my knees can't do that. I remember when I had those knees. It's like, well, you can keep them if you do the right
oh, I got
things.
a bad back.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
got
my
bad
back.
back. I got bad shoulder.
Uh.
Like if you're over 25 and you played 2 seasons of sports, an MRI would tell you that you have a bad shoulder and bad knees and probably like a pretty shit back as well. So like everyone has a bad back, everyone has bad shoulders, and we all have bad knees, and some people also have bad ankles. But like, okay, cool. Like that's literally how our bodies age. Like shit breaks down. You can just be stronger and not melt.
And I feel like that's the underlying principle of like all this Goda stuff and all this like all these other things is that they while they do preach all that like you have to be in this foot position, you have to do this, you have to do that, which even though I'm learning it and I am buying in, I guess you could call it. I do find that like if you're not strong, if your glutes aren't strong and your back isn't strong, how in the hell is that going to help you? Like if you're just hanging out in a hinge for so long that like and you're not strong, you're just going to end up hurting yourself. Like you have to have a prerequisite And I feel like the prerequisite is the strength in order for it to fully form, because like you can't Brett and I were talking about before the podcast, while it's extremely valuable, you're not going to get the strength. You just can't build like the overall strength with just that. And someone who's just starting out, like yeah, they can focus on it a little bit. Like if you throw it in as a little snacks, like to their programming.
I think they believe that you can. I think they believe, and same thing with like if you look at Power Plus, like they believe that their system is the best system, and you can develop all the strength that you need
Right,
with
but
their
they load
system.
everything. They
But
like they end up loading things like go to like they'll
yeah,
have
100%.
on them and like be loading and like you see Bam with like a weight vest on. So like that in turn means like you can't just do that. There has to be some load added. So it's like why not why not build it all in together? And that's
Yeah,
like the one thing that I
you're
those programmings.
you're right, but they'll be like you can do all the strength training like external load you need while following our principles. But I think the best thing is to formulate your own system. So like if you see that a barbell back squat could provide great value to this athlete, then you can't be like, "Oh no, like
Oh
we're
no.
Goda." Like we don't you know what I mean? Like just being able to formulate your own
Get on your
system.
two slant boards while doing that back squat
Yeah.
and your big toe pushing in while your foot is on a slant, and then you could do your back squat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So just have your own
Well,
ideas, man. Don't be brainwashed. Well, it's all
I
good.
mean, and
They're great, but yeah.
like I said before, man, like everything works, but it everything works until a point, right? Like no one's going to be doing, a some like I don't know because I love messing with them. No one's going to be doing some functional patterns stuff and really truly be able to improve their, you know, I don't know, their like back squat doing kettlebell squats or doing, rotational back lunges with a cable chop or something like that. Like you won't get stronger. You will not recruit as many muscle fibers doing that because you just can't load that pattern heavy enough to do that. You can't. So at some point you need to get a barbell or get a weight like okay, cool, your push-ups are going to get heavier and heavier and heavier until what? You have a stack of like 6 plates on your back.
Yeah.
Just go, like, dude, just go hit the bench. It's okay.
You know what this reminds me of? And this is a little bit off topic, but how kind of fruity all these movements look like
Bro, we were talking about that.
so I'm sorry to say, but if you watch some of these like functional patterns, Goda, even like the WEC method people, if you watch them walk, they're walking with a certain kind of zest right there.
Mm,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might just hit it
yeah,
right there.
short side, long side.
yeah, and then they're throwing their knees out, like keeping their knees in, like throwing their feet out. So it looks very looks pretty interesting, and all that crawling and child rocker stuff is
Oh,
the
the
crawling is
go
where
to
they get you.
crawling.
Crawling is where
Hmm
they get you. You know what I
hmm
mean?
I mean, you see someone crawling Dota and like you're wondering if there's a link in the bio.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like, oh, wow.
Yeah,
Hmm
there's definitely a at to like a second Instagram page. You know
This
what
is
I'm
my
saying?
main account.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially all of them got them hitting those arches in the lower back right there. You know what I mean? It's Equinox has a few of those.
I feel like there has to be
9 to 12.
there needs to be a study done on testosterone and which modality fitness you use. Like they need to take like a pure Goda, they need to take like a pure Olympic lifter, a pure power lifter, and like whatever else you could think of, and do some sort of assessment
Are,
based on your testosterone levels.
we're assuming that this is like tested because if not, the power lifters win.
Yeah, yeah. This is a natural competition. This is a natural. We can. Yeah, yeah. It has to be a natural competition. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I think that it'd have to be the power lifters or the Olympic lifters that have the highest T.
Heavy work.
What
Heavy
if in the
work.
mix was a fighter, but the fighter does zero anything else? Like no athletic training apart from the sport, no weightlifting. Like all he does is like bag, pad, spar,
Very
fight.
skinny. That dude would be very skinny.
So what's that? Featherweight? Bantamweight?
No, I mean he could be a naturally big dude, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, like realistically, like if you look at John Jones before he started weightlifting, he was
Oh,
just
bro.
very
Like,
skinny,
yeah, for
very
sure. I mean,
skinny.
I see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I see it all the time. Yeah, they have to lift.
What about jujitsu guys? Like you
No,
always find a
they're
jujitsu guy who's
mm,
like 6'3", 178 or something like that. They're a monster, but
yeah,
they'll still roll you over real fast.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
so going a little bit into that though, like if you're I know that these guys build a different kind of strength because they're moving bodies rather than moving weight.
that's what I was gonna say is like you can develop some serious strength in martial arts if you don't lift. But I was gonna say on a joking way that you can't include jujitsu in the study because it's like I don't know, it's just kind of fruity. You know what I mean?
I wrestled in high school. That's
Like
I would say
like
same.
for example, we were talking about the walks and whatnot. Wrestling, yeah, but if you compare like let's just say jujitsu to like the primal movement walk, you know what I mean? It's like you could be doing Muay Thai, you know? I'm
True.
just playing though.
You,
Somebody if they get you on the ground, you're done.
it's
Hey,
true.
like
So you're saying they can't fight?
No, I'm just kidding, dude. They're the best fighters. If you come with from a wrestling background and go into MMA, you're like the most deadly versus someone who like comes up striking and has to learn wrestling and jujitsu. If you grow up in that and you have that just drilled into your body, yeah, you have a better chance, I
wait, so
feel like.
you did track and wrestling?
Yeah, when I was in high school, but I just got fucking pummeled when I wrestled. So I was
Hmm.
the same. I'm 6'2". I was also 6'2" then, and I wrestled 152. Um,
152.
and yeah, so about 80 pounds lighter than I am now.
Wait, yeah.
But they were like, I mean, I just literally grew really tall and was super, super skinny. Um, and then, it took me like 15 years to fill out or so.
It's kind of like me right
But
now, bro. That's how I was. Yeah, that's how I was too,
yeah,
Drew. Because I'm like 200 right now, or a little bit more. Um, but I was like growing up, I was like the same thing. I was like 6 foot, 6'2". I'm like 6'2", 6'3", but I would be that height, but like super skinny. Probably
that,
the
weighing
worst
like the
thing,
exact same build I was.
yeah, the
I,
worst thing people would say would be like, "Oh, you wrestle, you got long arms, right? It's like a lot of leverage." I'm like, dude, it's like using a stick and saying you got a lot of leverage. Like it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Going up against guys that are like 5'6" that have actually been lifting weights for the past like 6 years.
Yeah, it doesn't
Since
count
he
if
was
the
like
stick
nine
just
years
snaps.
old. I was like, all right, cool. Then they'd be like, well, how come you lost? I'm like, because I'm literally like a freshman, like wrestling varsity because you need to fill a weight class. Like, what do you mean? How come I lost?
The movement is so different from like weight class sports are so well, I guess you could just say combat sports are so interesting like that because just I don't know, styles make fights, they say, right? Because you could be like a small guy, but like kind of beefy. Like let's just say like a 5'7" guy versus a 6'2", 6'3" guy at the 155-pound weight division. Because that's a pretty common matchup.
Yeah,
That's very interesting.
who wins? Who wins there? Like, because I assume you've been in those
It,
the
situations.
smaller
yeah,
guy,
it
the
well,
shorter
no, no,
guy.
no. I wouldn't say that. I think
In my case,
I was gonna I was gonna say it depends on the age. Because if you're that young age and you're like weak and scrawny and you're competing in those, then like yeah, for sure, you're probably gonna lose. But if you're like fully grown, like that's a common thing you would see in the UFC, right? So it just depends on how well the longer guy can manage his distance and whatnot. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, definitely time.
in my case, swimming. I feel like swimming was the perfect sport because it was so much resistance. Like I was doing cardio as my main form of exercise, but I was in high school, I was 180. I was 6'1", same height as I am now, but 180.
mm.
So I feel like
That's why.
doing lat pull downs a million times a day. And literally it's a million lat pull downs, and then you're getting a full quad extension on every single rep. You're getting a quad extension, your adductors are on fire because you're pressing the legs together, and then but our ankles are weak. That was the one
Yeah,
thing.
but your parents were grocery shopping, right? So you just eat everything.
All the
Never
time,
have to worry.
all the time. I was eating so good. I was eating like 5 meals a day because my mom was packing them.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, so that's the only challenge now with putting on weight. Like I'm 200 now, but it's the hardest part is actually getting the food into me because I have to do it. Yeah, like how do you manage that? Like besides, I mean, everybody I know about meal prepping and all that, but how do you manage to like truly put on the weight like while having so many responsibilities around you?
Robot food, man. That's what I'm gonna have when I go back to my apartment. I'm gonna take that 1.3 pound pack of ground beef and throw it in the pan, throw a handful of veggies in on top of that, and then a big old scoop of rice. It'd take 12 minutes. I'm like huge on frozen veggies just because, you should eat vegetables and I'm lazy. And so put a handful of those in, you're good. It's like 100 something grams of protein with a fair amount of carbs. And if I want to get real crazy and make it even more dense, then I'll add like a couple avocados or something like that. And now you have, and 2,000 calories for dinner in a relatively small package.
That's what I'm about
Um,
to make for
but
dinner.
yeah, but you really have to be okay eating like the same stuff all the time if you want to do it.
I've been going ham
Or
on yogurt bowls in the morning.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
favorite.
like I don't like, I really don't eat lunch too often, but I'll try and have like like a pseudo two dinners, right? Like one with the when my kids eat around like 4 and then come back and eat like another dinner later. Um, but I try and like definitely eat something for breakfast and get in like 50 plus grams of protein in the morning. Even if it's just like, even if I completely don't get breakfast and put like, if I miss breakfast completely, I'm putting 3 scoops of protein in a shake, um, and just slamming that just so I at least have the protein.
Do you track it all?
No, but I have, and
Okay.
I have for like an extensive amount of time. So like, I think if you're not going to track and you really want to bulk or cut, then like you should at least, you still like, I feel like you don't necessarily get to do that unless you've tracked it for like a month or for
Yeah,
like 2 weeks good and 2 weeks bad. So
I was gonna say I always say to track for you just have to do it once. You just have
yeah.
to do it. Like if you've never done it, you have to do it because it's gonna stick with you forever. You can start to eyeball. But especially if you're like trying to lose weight, those people and they've never tracked their food, like just track your food. Everything that goes into you, write it down and then do it and then analyze it.
So I have
Hmm.
a strong opinion about this about tracking because this is mainly about like making fun of the fat fluencers is what I call them. And this is a topic that Brendan and I have talked about before about how like there's the fat influencers, the people who are so like they preach it so much, and like I'm big on like the preaching what you practice or practice what you preach. And like no, it's more so practice what you preach or preach what you practice because I'm not gonna preach something that I don't do. So I'll never really talk on the macros because like I feel that it creates stress in people. And obviously, yes, if you do it once where you don't do it for You don't like you do it for maybe a year and like that's not that long, but then you for the rest of your life you have that.
If you do it for
But
1 month is all it takes. One
yeah,
month
Yeah.
is a long enough time to see everything that goes
I
into
did
your
it for a
body.
week and it caused me the amount of stress where like everything I put in my body it had to hit a certain goal and it was like it just created so much it created like a kind of a um like a dread towards like the day because it was like I knew I had to get certain amounts of things in and I didn't have a plan so I was just like so I was freaking out about it. So I think it's like a case by case. It's like if somebody is structured enough to be able to follow it, then like then that's where it's helpful because but then there's some people who would just like stress so much about it that it creates like an eating disorder, for example, or like
It's
creates like a paranoia around eating.
it's definitely case by case. Like there's so many things you could say about this, right? But like if you're somebody who eats whatever they want, you could just eat all natural foods and don't count the calories and then see how that changes. And it's going to change you a lot. But if you're somebody that has to make weight for an event, then you have to be very strategic with that kind of stuff. So there's two different spectrums, you know? Or if you are eating all the way clean, but you still want to lose weight or something, then you could track. But there's different instances where people would
I
need to
mean,
track
look,
versus not.
in my case, if I eat too clean, I just start losing so much weight and I feel too skinny. So I add a lot of biscuits in there. Good amount of biscuits.
That's
That's fine.
that's
Hey,
fair.
sourdough bread.
Nah, man, we're not talking sourdough bread.
That's the
Too clean, bro. Too
that's the
clean,
thing now,
man. You're
bro.
fucking. You need a donut, man.
Yeah, salty donut, man. Like, let me tell you, I'll finish flowing at the park for like 6 hours, and then I'll go right to salty donut. And it's like, look, we're carb loading.
Gotta get it in,
Hey,
bro.
good for that. I mean, back to what you were saying, Brett. Like case by case, but like if you have a specific goal or a specific timeline, right? Like, and like I've the precision nutrition level one and their level two, like master health coaching, and there's like three levels that you can be, right? Like your level one client is probably not going to track their food unless they happen to be super type A and like love doing that, and they're like, what do I need to do? Tell me exactly what I want to, what I should do. Um, or so in that case, like, bro, I was saying like eat whole foods, right? Like it's, my thing that I tell a lot of my clients is before you even think about what's for dinner, you should think about like what protein is for dinner, right? And let the rest of it fall in place, right? What's for dinner? Pasta. Okay, cool. So immediately, unless you're thinking I'm having chickpea pasta that's higher protein, then you're not going to be getting a high protein meal. Unless it's like we're having pasta because I love that bolognese. Like, okay, cool. Now I get it. You're having an epic meat sauce with some pasta in it. But what protein is for dinner? It's going to have chicken. What are you having with the chicken? Maybe I'll make like a little pasta to put on the side. And that's usually what happens, right? So you end up sticking to more of those like single ingredient things if you're thinking protein first and then filling in the rest.
That's a good way to look at it. Put the protein first. That's a really good way to look at it because it does make everything else fall into place at that point, you know? You decide what protein and then you kind of create a dish around that.
I mean, if you're like, you know, a moderately sized guy and you need to eat 185 grams of protein in a day, right? Like no matter who you are, 185 grams of protein is a fair amount of protein, right? Like even, that's, I could tell you like a pound of beef has around 100 grams of protein, depending on what level of lean you have, right? So you're talking at least 1 pound of meat, close to 2 pounds of meat if you're just eating meat and nothing plant-based, no yogurt or anything like that. So that's like a massive amount of protein. You're going to feel incredibly full. Like, how much room are you going to have for snacks if you just had like a 70-gram protein lunch, whatever that may be, right? Like,
How do you feel about timing when it comes to nutrition? Because from the studies I've done on nutrition, I've learned that timing is very important. Like having your biggest meal early on in the day and tapering. But it seems in most people's lives, it's like small breakfast, bigger lunch, huge dinner, go to bed.
I mean, I track my sleep, what sleep that I get with kids. Um, and I definitely sleep better if I eat either like if I eat lower carb at night, right? But that's, again, lower carb at night or eating longer before you go to sleep, right? So you have less of that blood sugar like spike. Um, but I think like the higher your protein goal is or the lower your calorie goal is, it's a lot easier to front load your day, right? I don't get too much into like the timing of things, but like, I'm 230 pounds. If I need to get 230 grams of protein in a day, it's a whole lot easier for me to start the day with like 50 plus grams of protein and then only have to get like 100 and something over the rest of the day. It just makes the rest of it fall into place a lot faster. And I like people love intermittent fasting, but the people that intermittent fast are also the people that are like trying to bulk and get 110 grams of protein a day for a 180-pound guy. Like, okay, but what if you ate, like you had, right? What if you had a yogurt bowl for breakfast with, a bunch of other fun stuff in there and some fruit and seeds and nuts and stuff. And like
Yep.
now you just started your day with like 50 grams of protein. You slam with 2 scoops of protein in a shake, and now you have 100 grams of protein in your day and you're good. Like
Percent, yeah, throw that yogurt
easy to
bowl in
catch
with
up.
some eggs,
Yeah.
eggs, and I don't know, throw some bacon in there, a little eggs and bacon with a yogurt bowl on the side. Phew, come on.
I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in
Maybe
oat.
maybe an apple with peanut butter in there. See what I mean? But yeah, what you said about carbs at night makes perfect sense. Uh, because what is your body doing when you're sleeping? So what is your body using as fuel? Fats, protein.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
you
what you
hope.
need. You can't use the carbohydrates when you're sleeping. You know what I mean?
I'm bad at that. I usually eat. I'm a carb fiend, so I will eat massive amounts of carbs at night because I get real sleepy after carbs. So my breakfasts and my lunches throughout the day are very low carb and high protein and some fat source. And then at night is when I carb load because I get real sleepy after carbs. So I think it's like realistically it's a case by case, obviously. But when I really front load my day with carbs, I feel like absolute dog shit.
I think the timing is very important, you know. Get those carbs in and a lot of them after an intense workout.
Yeah.
And if you're not
That's
doing
really
an
the one thing
intense
that matters.
workout, you don't need that many carbs. Just stay fats and proteins.
That's true. That's true. I feel
Again,
like
right?
that's
Like,
where intuitive eating comes in. Intuitive eating, because it's like this is the biggest thing that I tell people. Because people always ask, or people are like, how do you maintain? It's like, bro, did you work out that day? Eat a little bit more if yes. Did you not? Maybe don't push too hard on the calories.
and I mean, again, right? Like, if you're a 200-pound guy and you know you're eating 200 or 200 grams of protein in the day, it's a lot easier to eat intuitively when you're full as fuck because you've eaten 2 pounds of meat if you're eating animal products. Like, a couple chicken breasts and a pound of salmon at dinner, like you're probably not snacking too hard.
True.
So if you start your day with 6 eggs and a bowl of yogurt, like
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever ate a pound of meat at once, but
I'm gonna do that
it
tonight.
fills you up.
I last night's dinner, or not last night's, the night before was two packs of ground beef, so 2 pounds, and and some rice, cottage cheese, and honey drizzle on top of some salt. What you mean, right there? That's the best dinner ever. Like
Bro, you know what's a good little bowl is like do a pound of ground beef and then go with like Greek yogurt and taco seasoning and you could do cheese or whatever.
Mm,
It's like gives it that creamy like feel.
man,
You don't taste the yogurt because you season it with taco seasoning. Bro, make a
use
little
yogurt like mayonnaise, man.
yeah, man. It's like a little taco bowl.
I have never done that, but I'm gonna try it now. Shit.
Bro, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Don't go light on the taco seasoning either.
I've
Anyone?
been making I've been making kind of contradictory bowls in the extreme schools of thought, right? So I'll do like a whole bunch of beef. Maybe I'll have like, I don't know, some other kind of meat in there or something. I've done like beef and chicken before. And then just to piss some people off,
I do
put
that
a whole
all.
bunch of edamame in there. They'd be like, but that's now you're gonna be a soy boy. It's like, yeah, whatever, dude. It's still, protein and fiber at the same time. So I
Dude,
win.
there's nothing like hibachi chicken and steak fried rice.
Oh yeah.
You
That's
know what
classic combo right there.
my ultimate conundrum is? I make a pizza, but the base is ground beef smashed down into like a what I call a beefsa. So like
Oh, so carnivore, bro.
no, it's just delicious. Delicious. You make the base, you make it like a pizza. Because here's the thing, I'm not gonna make the dough. I'm not a chef. I'm not out here like whipping it up and like spinning it around. So I grabbed the beef and I completely flattened it onto the tray, made it into a pizza. Then I put the tomato sauce. I put some cheese. I put sausage. I cut up like a chorizo and I put it on there. Man, you guys have no clue. Like that right there was the
That
peak of my
sounds solid, bro.
I was the peak of my life, bro.
You could make like a cheeseburger pizza.
Yeah.
Like if you went with just kind of leave out the sauce, do a different type of cheese.
Make a
Put some
cheeseburger.
put some ketchup and mustard on.
Yeah. Personally, I'd skip the ketchup and mustard. I'm not a big fan of those sauces. I'm an aioli type of guy.
Oh, okay, fancy. Fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that aioli or even something that I just started getting into was putting hot sauce and putting honey in there, making my own hot honey.
That's really good. Hot sauce is great too because it's like 0 calorie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too
Load
worried
up in the hot
about
sauce.
calories, but I'm personally I'm the type of dude that it's like if it's got more calories, give it to me. Like,
Well, we're talking about losing weight. I'm not a big ketchup fan unless it's on like a burger. But if it's like fries, I don't dip fries in ketchup.
no, I like my fries.
Depends on the fry.
Yeah.
I'm
Depends on the fry.
I'm going fry ranch every time.
It
Ooh,
is a case by case basis. Some fries you don't need anything.
like give me
That's a
those
great point.
crispy fries. If they're crispy and they've got like that golden look to them, then shit.
Truffle fries, bro.
Ooh.
Truffle fries need
Probably don't need
sauce.
ketchup.
They probably don't need ketchup. That's one thing I can tell you.
All right. All right. So enough about food because I'm getting hungry. But one thing that I think we all have a lot of fun with is making fun of the different types of working out. So like there's the functional patterns guys who are not jacked dudes, but claim that
Never jacked dudes.
never, never. Like you'll find like the one football player who's on there, but like what did he spend 90% of his life doing?
Yeah.
Heavy weights.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, like I love how they love to use them in their promo because of course, why wouldn't you want to put this 230 pound jack dude on there?
bro. You know who
Um,
makes me mad, bro? Who makes me mad is Mike Israetel.
People
Somebody,
been going off on him lately, man.
are they going
They're
off on
like,
him?
yeah, I just saw someone the other day. He's like, why are you going to listen to a guy about getting big when like he's not even the biggest and he's not even diced up anymore?
He's a
I was
very
like, who?
small guy.
he
He
is
is.
probably the fattest looking guy at 5% body fat.
I
Have you seen
mean,
him talk about how he holds 20 pounds of water? Like, shut the fuck up.
I
Bro,
mean, I guess it shows.
Like, what do you
I'm
mean
trying
you
to
have
hold 20 pounds of
25
water.
pounds of water in your waist? He says, like, have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Bro,
But
it didn't take me much many podcasts to stop listening to what he had to say.
I mean, look, I think it's a lot of his stuff is very good, but he's very like anytime he critiques anybody's training, like especially athletes training,
That
he talks
that's
about how it's garbage because they're not heavy full range of motion lifting.
bro, that's why because like I'm more in the sports performance realm. And so when I see him talk the way he talks about sports performance, it kind of just rubs me the wrong way. Everybody can use their own strategies, like I said, but I feel like he has more research. I don't know. I don't know. He's a smart guy. He's done a lot of college, but who knows? I don't like what he has to say and a lot of things.
greatest thing I ever heard, right? I did another Strong First seminar. It was called Strong Endurance. And I did it because Pavel actually taught it. And he said something that has literally stuck with me forever. He was like, nothing new will be discovered in fitness ever again. He was like, it's all been discovered and named, and we were done with all that in the 70s. Nothing new will come out. People will rebrand things, call it new names, but there's absolutely nothing new that will be discovered. He's like, it's just about who can coach it better. I was like, damn. Then you think about it and you're like, damn, he's right.
Yeah,
Nothing's new.
like
I always hold myself back too whenever I start like speaking down on like something because everything does work, and it's like some person may need what he's given, and it may really improve that person's performance or whatever else. But anyways, everybody has their own system.
Yeah. But again, right? Like coiling is Pakistani stone lifters, that strongman deadlift is, the other side of the world's stone lifters, where you're hiking it up your thighs, right? Like nothing's new, man. Javelin is literally spear throwing. Thousands of years ago we did it so we could actually eat. And now it's a sport and a competition. Like nothing is new.
that's very true.
Even even when you look at systems today, like that people have coined or whatever, especially in sports performance, they're all a lot of this stuff is based off of Verkhoshansky stuff. They
Yeah,
all apply his
100%.
principles and then make their own system.
Yeah, 100%.
That was
Like
one.
all anything.
And there's
What did
others
you
as
say?
well, right? There's others as well, but
That was one thing that they really hampered down on when we were at that outside the box conference in Melbourne is each one of those coaches. We talked to Brian Kula, we talked to Tony Holler. Um, well, they spoke to us. We didn't really talk much to them, but Brian McGinty, the Power Plus guy, um,
Hmm.
David Weck, Chris Chamberlain talked as well. Um, and Zach Woodworth. This is his ATG guy, and you know
Hmm.
ATG, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was an ATG guy, and basically all of them had the same. They talked about the same stuff because they were all in the sports performance world, but every single one of them referenced Vershansky. I never know how to say it right,
Yeah.
but
Verkhoshansky.
Verkhoshansky. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm verbally impaired. But
the Russians will do that to you.
yeah, no, it's actually a thing. I pronounce so many things wrong, but it's all right. But yeah, so all of them talked about how like all of their principles kind of go back to that, and then you can even just go to what Louis Simmons did and just translated it into English.
Well, that's what he did is he took their stuff and uh I guess he's I mean, bro, when did Louis Simmons create? When were they really? What year was that?
The 60s.
Is
It
it
was
the
the
60s?
60s.
That's pretty early on and
Louis Simmons was a power lifter, and then what ended up happening was
oh, I
he
know the story. I was just wondering the
okay,
year.
okay.
Yeah, everybody. But that's one thing that I don't like though. One thing I don't like is sports performance coaches who follow Louis Simmons' method completely because you're missing out on so much. Like if you don't add in your own creativity and you're doing like how they prescribe, you know what I
Well,
mean?
you're
Like
talking
taking
about
Max's
powerlifting training for sport.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like if you're doing because they worked with a lot of athletes at some point, but if you uh know a lot about it, the exercises were very different. They weren't powerlifting exercises. They weren't doing, 2 times a week max bench, max squat, and then same lift on dynamic day banded with lighter weight. That's just
So
gonna
much fun though.
make them stiff and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean,
So much fun.
Yeah,
it's just
it's
like
like,
the
are you
thing.
trying to be a better bencher or are you trying to be a better soccer player or football player?
Yeah. I mean, I think like what Louis Simmons did was very cool because it was very much like made a lot of like the deep science a bit more approachable,
Yeah.
right? Like, because, instead of talking about why we're hitting 70% fast or why we're dropping it down and doing all this like fast, and just like, it's good for your joints.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And especially in that
Finish off with a
world
set
too.
of 60.
Especially in that world too, because those power lifters, like in America, who knows what they were doing before the dynamic method was applied. They're probably taking maxes like as much as they could. You want to lift
Yeah.
more? If you want to lift
No,
more, lift more.
right. And that's like the Bulgarian system. Like it works, but then you go back to the Soviets and they found out that it only works for like 3 weeks. Right. So
Right.
like if you're really on that conjugate on like
Exactly.
a max effort upper, max effort lower, dynamic effort low,
And that's
upper, dynamic lower.
and that's another great thing to apply to your own style of training is the law of accommodation. The law of
Yeah.
accommodation. Because people do those like periodized programs where it's not periodization from like a bioenergetic standpoint, it's periodization from a specific exercise standpoint. And they'll be on the same lift for way too long, which in
Yeah.
my
I mean, and
opinion
I
is a
think
flaw
that's where,
unless you're trying to
yeah, I
develop that
think
one lift.
even if you're trying to develop that one lift, like that's where like patterns come into play, right? Like, okay, if you're trying to build your deadlift and you're a power lifter, then like you should deadlift. You absolutely need it in your program 100% of the time. But that doesn't mean that that is going to be your max effort one, right? Like, maybe for your first block of programming, that's your max, or that you're even not even max. Let's say it's like a different, you're not doing conjugate, right? So you keep in your program for 6 weeks and then you realize that you're what's the sticking point in your pull, right? So you add in some pause reps, which are going to be completely sub max, or or your lockout sucks. And so your next block has super heavy rack pulls or something like that, right? Like, and then your deadlifts, you treat your like, maybe you pull sumo if you're pulling conventional most of the time, and you pull conventional if you're pulling sumo. Again, like sub max, but it's just you keep the pattern, you keep the lift that you're going to do, but you have to give yourself some, I don't know, like you said, like some creativity so you understand like what are you missing on that lift.
Percent. And I would even like for deadlifters, I would very much love to see I would love to see a lot of stuff where you're getting that kettlebell clean, kettlebell like a kettlebell clean, for example, or a kettlebell swing, where you're really like you're ballistically training that hinge. And it's just, I mean, like again, like if the motor pattern is the goal, then there's so many things that could be applied. It's like, and you even think about like glutes promoting thoracic extension at that point. So like a sandbag, like a sandbag from knees up. I don't know what that's called. Is that like where you have it at the knees and the bear hug and you lift it up? Like that's like a good example of like the glutes promoting thoracic extension. And like that could be like that could be your max effort as well. So it's like just a movement pattern itself can be versatilized, whatever, so many ways. Yeah, like I said, I'm
Vertalicized.
brutalicized. There we go.
I don't know if that's the right word.
I don't know
But
if that's a word.
I don't think it is.
hey, we're creating words on Power Talks. This is a new segment that I talked to Brett about creating, is adding new words into training language. So both Brett and I are very into reading, into learning. This is going to be, uh, we're going on a little bit of over an hour 30. So let's get into the last topic here, which is going to be knowledge of training, and one, the importance of expanding it as a coach, and two, some of the best things you've read that have helped your training and helped your outlook on training, and whether or not
Mm,
you found it to be more important or as important as it seems.
yeah,
That's a good way to phrase that too. Something to be as important as it seems. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because people will read like one Louis Simmons book, be like, "This is the way." You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I loved like the book of methods, right? Like very cool. All of the stuff that he's put out, like the weightlifting manual, right? Like all very cool, very helpful to me. Um, is it worth its weight in gold? I don't know, right? Because you can also argue that conjugate, if done wrong, could also really like steer someone completely wrong on their lifting, right? Because that gives them the idea that you need variety in everything all the time. You're like, well, it's been 3 weeks. I should change my program. Like, no, dude, you should. It's been 3 weeks. You should change your max lift. Like, change one thing. The rest of it works. Um, but in terms of things that I've like read that really had a big impact, I would say like the number one thing that had the biggest impact on my actual coaching was this book, The Language of Coaching. It's Nick Winkelman, and he's got like a nice 2 hour mini podcast on it on YouTube also. But it is just about how we talk to clients and how we cue them to do anything, right? And like the three of us would go on and on about like the biomechanics of the internal rotation of the femur on the squat and how as you come up, it externally rotates to get the full hip extension, all that shit. But like if you tell that to a client, be like, I want you to feel your knees pressing out as you're in the internal rotation. Like that means absolute shit to them. Right. So the language of coaching is about figuring out those big external cues that you use to get someone to do the right thing. Right. Like with like a fighter, and you want them to shoot in for like a takedown, right? Like if you tell them, I need you to lunge forward very quickly while you're reaching, and I need you to tuck that head down so you don't get caught in the face with a cross face or with some kind of a block, and I need you to go down there like really fast. Like, I mean, like, okay, cool, but like, what if you tell them to like dive under, a wave before the wave hit them, right? Like now they know like you got to get under there like quickly. So it's these bigger analogies and these bigger ideas that people can think of that make a lot more sense to them. And then after that, you can go back and reflect on like the mechanics of what it is that they did, right? Like I had talked about earlier with someone squatting and their feet are caving in and it's all shit. And you're going to tell them, put your knees out, but knees out doesn't work because, my knees out where? My knees are outside of my shorts. Like it doesn't mean anything to them in their head. So instead it would be, take your toes and yeah, they're out of my shorts right now. Like it's my knees are out. Like they're like, and you're like, oh God, like seriously, that's like not what I meant. It's like, okay, cool. Like, so like, are you just not cueing the right way to get the response you want? Right. So I want you to dig your toes into the sand like you're on the beach and the sand is the perfect temperature and your toes are a little cold. And they're like, oh my God, exactly. Right. And like, and you're already like curling your toes just thinking about that. You're like, that's right, that's right. I'm feeling it. Okay, cool. Now your arch is strong, your feet are locked into the ground, you're grounded. It makes a lot more sense. I had it didn't backfire because the cue worked, but I had a young kid. He's like 19, literally never worked out. His squats were just like stripper squats, right? Like knees first, hips second, boom, really, really backing it up on each squat. So I told him, I'm like, at the bottom, when you're coming up, as soon as you feel things start to get hard, I want you to just like throw your throw your dick at the wall. And he was like, got it. And so when he came up, his hips shot forward into that locked out position. And the only reason I say it's backfired is because, we're at Equinox, a public big box gym. And he's standing there and he's like, getting ready for a set. He's like, all right, dick at the wall, dick at the wall, dick at the wall, dick at the wall. I'm like, oh, Jesus, just say it in your head, man. Like, say it in your head and do it. um, but yeah, the language of coaching, like for understanding how to coach someone to do the movement and give them the right thing to think about, instead of thinking about like I need to my hips and my knees break at the same time and I lower myself down as I feel myself drive. I can feel my knees want to bend in a little bit so I have more access to the glute maximus. Like it, if you're thinking that hard, then your squat is going to look like shit because you're thinking about the wrong things. You know, like I need you to stand up as fast as possible. Like you sat in a chair and it was hot, or there was something wet on the chair. Like, oh my God, right, cool. You explode back up. Um, that was the biggest change in my coaching. It changed how, like, I got better results from everyone that I coached after that. Um, yeah, that was like top one without a doubt.
And were there any books that so would you say that like were there besides certifications and everything, because I know you have to read a lot for certifications, but would you say that in terms of like training modalities and training like training itself, that application helped more than reading, or reading helped the application?
I think application matters, but the reading is helpful to understand why it matters,
Hmm.
right? Like you could be really successful with coaching people, and there are people that are very successful coaches for weight loss, for fighters, for weight gain, or just classic bodybuilding and stuff that literally have no idea why this shit works, but they do know that it continues to work, right? And a lot of times people don't that train with them aren't asking them like why it works because they're still getting results and they're seeing the improvements they want. So at the end of the day, to that person, that training client, doesn't matter, man. My coach knows what he's doing because it keeps working.
So
But
people
like
skills is
what
more important in
happens
your opinion, like knowing.
yeah, but what happens when they ask why? Why is this working? Because it does. I feel like
So
you
it
should
kind
have
of
more of an
depends
answer
on
for
the
that.
client you have, right? It depends like if you have someone who's like for example, if I'm with a coach and I can't nerd out with him, then he's not going to be a good coach for me. Um, so yeah, it's I guess it's a case by case study. So like these guys who don't really know anything, and mostly in the bodybuilding world, it'll be like in Miami, it'll be like some Cuban guy who's just like, oye, pero dice perfect because this is perfect. Trust me, Poppy, I know.
Your chest looks good. You're like, so okay, I mean he's right, it does.
Yeah, yeah. But like were there any books that really in the training world besides Lewis Simmons that really got to you?
I mean, nothing that was like a complete and total game changer, right? Like, um, for books that were like very cool and super interesting, right? Like I put you on to Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Yeah.
Very cool, super interesting. Does it change too much? Like, no, not
It's good.
really, but it's like super interesting to understand more about stress, right? Like um, Peter Attia's book Outlive, right? Like so that you have something to talk about longevity with everyone who's hooked on longevity now, right? Like now you can be like, well, there was also this book that this guy wrote, and everyone's like, oh, he's got a podcast, he's huge, he's big. Like, yeah, I read that. Now I think I do need to gain muscle and increase my VO2 max. And you're like, yes, exactly. Like I've been saying since the beginning, but like it's more of just like having another tool in the shed to like get people on board.
So one thing in the why zebras don't get ulcers, being able to turn on that stress response immediately and turn it off, that's a big thing that Brett and I are learning in the Power Plus system. Um, is how to one be extreme so his whole thing is nervous system training. So while you're actually doing the exercise, you're in extreme like you're in extreme overdrive, like the zebra when he's getting chased by a lion.
Mhm.
And then the second you finish your exercise, the second you finish your workout, you're just into like breathing mode where you're like getting that stress response all the way down completely to the ground, and then being able to turn it back on in a second. So
And
it's like,
also applying, which I've been doing and what I believe continue to do because it makes the most sense is, and this gets away from the powerlifting type blueprint in sports performance, is doing like high low splits, meaning high CNS, low CNS.
Yeah.
When you consider the aggressive nature of sports, and it's a very nervous system demanding activity, and you want that to be heightened. So doing drills with like call outs and lights and like we were doing jump rope today in the gym, and I was like we're doing hard ground contact, fast jumps, and I'm giving them call outs. So like feet in, feet out, side to side, right foot, side to side, right foot, back and forth, right foot, back and forth, left foot, side to side, right foot, drawing X, side to side, but forward and back, like, and just calling it out super fast. And then like you saw the twitch drill that I was doing, and like ball work, like fast, just everything, just fast, fast core, fast everything. And then having a day where it's more like aerobic in nature and doing like an aerobic slow low CNS workout.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think about swimming too. Like, there's days where you can't go 100% fast every day. There's a lot of days where it'll just be very slow, working on that sprint speed, but like moving extremely slow and just like being very, very slow, very like technical, very like not demanding of the muscles because there's only a certain amount. Like, they talk about this a lot in triphasic training where it's like, and conjugate where you only have those 3 weeks where your body's in that peak performance at a time, and it's like it like varies like the as you go throughout your training cycle, like you'll have your peak and then it like lasts a few days and then you can only get there again after a few days, and that's it's pretty interesting.
I'd like to find a book on peaking because a lot of them talk about it. A lot of them talk about it, but I'd like to find a book on like just on peaking. I'm sure they're out there. I'll have to research that because that just made me wonder. That just made me want to study that.
I only have ones on marathons and running.
Yeah, but even then, like reading like all aspects of peaking out, you know what I mean? Because like Louis Simmons talks about it, James Smith talks about it. You were just talking about it, Andrew, with triphasic training. You have a marathon book, so it's like I would like to, there's got to be something out there, you know. There's got to be something out there that's like a science and practice of strength training for. Maybe it's in science and practice of strength training. I'm sure it is. I'd have to double check that. But anyways,
Should be.
Well, we have reached the 2 hour mark. So to cap things off, first of all, we'd like to thank Brendan for coming on. This has been an awesome episode. We just about covered everything there is to cover when it comes to fitness. Covered training modalities. We've covered dogma, dogma and different approaches. We've talked about when someone should apply corrective exercises, but most importantly, we did get into some shit talking. Now, any last thoughts you'd like to put out there, Brendan?
No, I think we covered, like you said, covered a lot of it, man.
All right. So where can we find you? And if someone wants to work with you, where should they go?
You can find me on Instagram. It's beeffit. It's BEEF beef.itt. Shoot me a message and we can set up a consult and go from there. If not, I'm at Equinox at Brickell Heights in Miami, Florida.
gang, gang, baby.
Yeah,
Gang.
man.
And
Hey,
Brett, where can we find you?
yes, sir. Find me at brettthiem. But if you're, I feel like for closing thoughts, because this could be a lot for somebody. You know what I mean? So just know who you are. Know who you are, know what your goals are. You see what I mean? And then go from there. You see what I mean? Because we talked sports performance, we talked movement, we've talked general fitness. But if you're working in that general fitness, man, just find something you enjoy and stick to it.
Yep.
That's all I got.
And then for me, you can find me at Andrew's Not Fit. Andrew is not fit in the slightest. I'm just out here. But
Facts.
but yeah, we're just we're super blessed to have you on, and thank you for everybody listening. That is it. Peace out.